Hello everyone, I'm Kamraun.
And I'm Dane. Welcome to the Malazan Brotherhood podcast.
Today we will be discussing Book 2, Chapter 9 of House of Chains, a novel in the Malazan Book of the Fallen. This is part 3 of our coverage of this chapter.
This podcast series is intended to be a companion to reading or listening to the books set in the Malazan universe. It's not a book review, and it is not a replacement to reading the books.
We will be covering the events of the books in a linear fashion. There will be spoilers for those that have not read the books. We will try not to spoil anything prior to us covering that portion of the respective book.
Today's episode contains descriptions of many types of violence, up to osteological as well as coruscating, and thus is not suitable for children.
Our show is listener supported. If you would like to support us, we'd really appreciate that. You can do so by visiting our Patreon link on our website at horsefrogproductions.com. Currently, we're posting ad-free episodes on Patreon weekly.
Also, we would really like to hear from you. Send any feedback or comments to contact@horsefrogproductions.com.
All right, Chapter 9, Part 3. The howls of rage reverberated through Onrak's bones, though he knew his companion could hear nothing. These were cries of the spirits, two spirits trapped within two of the towering, bestial statues rearing up on the plain before them. The cloud cover overhead had broken apart, was fast vanishing in thinning threads. 3 moons rode the heavens, and there were 2 suns. 3 moons and 2 suns?
A lot going on celestially here.
Yeah, would you say that's a celestial escalation?
Certainly.
Imagine the gravitational forces on this realm.
I'm surprised the water's not floating at this point.
What kind of tides would you have in a place like this?
Yeah, it'd be pretty nuts. Watch them high tides. They're coming in.
The light flowed with shifting hues as the moon swung on their invisible tethers. A strange, unsettling world, Onrak reflected. The storm was spent. They had waited in the lee of a small hill while it thrashed around the gargantuan statues. The wind howling past from its wild race through the rubble, littered streets of the ruined city lying beyond. And now the air steamed. From where he sat hunched, his back to the edifices, Troll asked, "What do you see, Talani Mass?" Shrugging, Onrak turned away from his lengthy study of the statues and said, "There are mysteries here, of which I suspect you know more than I." Troll glanced up with a wry expression and said, "That seems unlikely. What do you know of the Hounds of Shadow?" Onrak replied, "Very little. The Logros crossed paths with them only once, long ago, in the time of the First Empire. 7 in number, serving an unknown master, yet bent on destruction." Troll smiled oddly, then asked, "The human First Empire or yours?" Oh boy, let's add a layer of confusion to the situation by having multiple First Empires, shall we?
Indeed. This has always been a struggle of mine, and I don't know if this just kind of persists even though you read through it multiple times, but it's like every time I hear First Empire, it's like, what are we talking about here? Which one? How many are there actually?
You know what? Everybody wants to be the First Empire.
you know, that's funny. Every time my wife and I drive through a town, we see First Baptist Church, and I always laugh. It's like, who's actually the first? Everybody just puts first on their church, and, that's it. I guess it's just first for the town.
I'm the baddest empire you ever seen.
That's good.
Onrak said, "I know little of the human empire of that name. We were drawn into its heart but once, Troll Sengar, in answer to the chaos of the soul-taken and divers. The hounds made no appearance during that slaughter." Okay, so Onrak is talking about that empire in 7 cities. We saw one of their cities when Culp, Felicin, and Hebrick went through it together in Deadhouse Gate. They saw all these horrific scenes of these remains of people that were mid-transformation. They seemed to be frozen in time and then calcified after that.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was evidence that Talani Mass were in there when they walked through, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, there were some Talani Mass in that city. It looked like Culp had discovered some of the figures that had been mineralized and stuff and recognized them as looking like Talani Mass.
Okay. It's kind of backing up what Onrak's saying here.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Onrak looked back at the massive stone hound before them. Slowly he continued. It is believed by the Bonecasters that to create an icon of a spirit or a god is to capture its essence within that icon. Even the laying of stones prescribes confinement. Just as a hut can measure out the limits of power for a mortal, so too are spirits and gods sealed in a chosen place of earth or stone or wood, or an object. In this way, power is chained, and so becomes manageable. Tell me, do the Teist Edur concur with that notion?
It's interesting. More instances of chaining things to manage their power. I feel like we've seen this a couple of times already.
Mm-hmm.
Some big ways, maybe.
Yeah, what immediately came to mind here was, well, There's a couple different aspects, but what I was thinking about was the relationship between worshipers and the deity that they choose to worship. That two-way street that we've talked about before.
Right.
And in a way, I feel that that's kind of a chaining of those two things together.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We talked about how the ascendants are beholden to those that worship them in a way. There's like a tide of the desires of the worshipers that in some ways the ascendants can't get away from. And then separately, the ascendants can do things to influence the people that are worshiping them. It's kind of in a limited fashion. What do you think of that?
Didn't Karul say something specifically about losing power as an ascendant if the ties to the people worshiping you start to wane or fade? They lose their power.
Yeah, once they forget about you.
So I feel like there is kind of definitely that chaining connection. You have more power, more people you have. It feels connected. It definitely feels connected.
In that regard as well, what Karul was referring to was, I think those elder gods, they had a lot of blood sacrifice that was feeding their power back in the day. And it seems that has slowed down in the modern era of worship. And so as they stop doing that kind of stuff, the power naturally wanes.
Okay.
The other way that I think of things being chained in place is like a finest.
Right.
The power of something or the spirit of it is stored within an object. That was the other way.
I think that comes up a little bit later, too.
In this section here?
I think so.
Oh, okay. Again, reading comprehension. Are we reading the section? Maybe I glossed over that.
We'll see.
Troll Sengar climbed to his feet and asked, "Do you think we raise these giant statues, Onrak? Do your bonecasters also believe that power begins as a thing devoid of shape, and thus beyond control? And that to carve out an icon, or make a circle of stones, actually forces order upon that power?" Onrak cocked his head, was silent for a time, then replied, "Then it must be that we make our own gods and spirits. That belief demands shape, and shaping brings life into being. Yet were not the Teist Edur fashioned by Mother Dark? Did not your goddess create you?" Troll's smile broadened. He said, "I was referring to these statues, Onrak. To answer you, I do not know if the hands that fashioned these were Teist Edur. As for Mother Dark, it may be that in creating us, she but simply separated what was not separate before." Onrak asked, "Are you then the shadows of Teist Andi, torn free by the mercy of your goddess mother?" Troll replied, "But Onrak, we are all torn free." Dude, the philosophical nature of this conversation is heavy. Like, you could sit with that. These are deep topics.
Yeah.
The nature of how we're all torn free from our mothers at some point, and the idea that the Teist Edur were one with the Teist Andi, and then they were physically separated, the shadow from the being, is an interesting thing.
Yeah. You start to get into the philosophical nature of some of these conversations, and every once in a while, I'll take a stab at something that maybe I think I can kind of wrap my head around. But this is another one where I gloss over it a little bit. And then you point it out, and then it's like, yeah, now I'm doing some mental gymnastics trying and make sense of it.
The thing I like about this, though, is we've talked about Troll and Onrak's relationship and how it's one of our favorite ones in the books. Particularly, I think you really mentioned that before. And Troll's personality is coming out here. The Teist Edur, so far, not a great impression. To be fair, not many of them have had a lot of lines of dialogue so far. But the more we learn about Troll, he's very thoughtful, very introspective, and these are pretty heady topics. And Onrak is actually sitting here and engaging with him now, as opposed to first, I don't care, I don't want to know. You remember when he first met, he's like, "Don't tell me your story. It's going to put a burden on me."
Right. But this is, as you said, their personalities coming out, where Troll said he's cursed with questioning things, and Onrak said he's cursed with curiosity. So the two of them together, they have no choice. They can try and hold it off for a little while, but their natural idiosyncrasies start to rise, and a conversation like this happens whether they want to or not.
It was inevitable.
It was inevitable. That's right.
Onrak said, "Two of the hounds are here, Troll Sengar. Their souls are trapped in the stone. And one more thing of note, these likenesses cast no shadows." Troll said, "Nor do the hounds themselves." Onrak persisted, "If they are but reflections, then there must be hounds of darkness, from which they were torn. Yet there is no knowledge of such." The Talani mass suddenly fell silent. Troll laughed and said, "It seems you know more of the human First Empire than you first indicated. What was that tyrant emperor's name? No matter, we should journey onward to the gate." Onrak whispered, "Decimbalakis, the founder of the human First Empire, long vanished by the time of the unleashing of the beast ritual. It was believed he had veered." Troll asked, "Divers?" Onrak replied, "Aye." Troll asked, "And beast numbered?" Onrak said, 7. There's some interesting concepts in here.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, the Hounds of Darkness.
Mm.
Gives you shivers thinking about it, because all we've known so far is they're Hounds of Shadow.
Right.
And the idea that there are different types of hounds, it's an escalation, it feels like.
Yeah.
Because now it's not just the 7 Hounds of Shadow, which very simply massacred a couple thousand people in Idkokan.
Right.
We've seen what they're capable of.
Mm-hmm.
We do kind of tend to lose sight of how powerful they are when we're thinking of, well, Anomander Rake came down and killed 2 of them in one fell swoop with Dragnapur. But I mean, he's also a force of nature.
Right.
You have a tendency to forget just how powerful these things are, but they are truly powerful. And the idea to me is almost like a shadow is weaker than the original.
Yes.
And so the idea that they've been separated from something stronger than them, potentially, it's metal, I guess is the best way to say, this is so awesome. And then this name, Decembalakis, the founder of the Human First Empire, who was a divers that turned into 7 creatures. This is something that you're going to want to remember, because it's one of those introductions of another little tidbit of history, but it's also like kind of just peeling back the curtain on, oh crap, like this is another one of those legendary, powerful scenarios.
Right.
Someone that founded an empire and was in control of it, and then potentially was one of the first divers. And then finally, these statues casting those shadows. This scene already was epic proportions with the 7 huge stone statues, and then there's no shadows there. The whole thing, I love it.
Yeah. From whenever it was a couple of chapters ago, when they came and stood it between the 2 shadows, and Onrak was like, 2 of these are alive. And it was already like alarm bells are going off. And here there's like even more reveal, escalation indeed.
Troll stared up at the statues, then gestured as he said, "We didn't build these. No, I am not certain, but in my heart I feel no empathy. They are ominous and brutal to my eyes, Talani Mass. The Hounds of Shadow are not worthy of worship. They are indeed untethered, wild and deadly. To truly command them, one must sit in the throne of shadow, as master of the realm. But more than that, one must first draw together the disparate fragments, making Kurald Emerlon whole once more."
I thought that this was pretty interesting, and something I didn't catch the first time through. To be able to command the hounds fully may require Kurald Emerlon to be complete, which makes me wonder, how do Shadow Throne and Cotillion do it? Maybe they have partial control? I'm not sure.
That's a good question, because it makes you wonder, maybe it's just expedience on their part where they're like, yeah, we'll serve you for now, as long as it suits our needs or we feel like it.
Yeah.
If you think about pack dynamics, maybe at some point they think, we don't need you anymore. Potentially, like it's
right.
Terrifying.
Yeah. As long as the ask is not too great or not so far out of what they would do anyway, that they'll do what Shadow Throne and Cotillion ask. But yeah, if you don't have full control and you have these hounds that are so savage and deadly, it was very interesting to think how they're doing it.
I feel like Shadow Throne made a comment one time about how tenuous this relationship is. It's not locked in and they just obey everything he does. There's a little bit of reservation on his part of when he wants to use them, because if he asks too much, maybe it's not going to turn out too well for him.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Another thing, Onrak does have quite a lot of information here on the First Empire. Even if he said he doesn't know that much, it makes me wonder if there was a version of a Talani Mass historian, what they would know.
Eons of knowledge contained within there. And it's amazing that Onrak can remember as much as he does.
These guys have like a eidetic memory or something. So many of them. It's like they've been around for 100,000 years or something, and they can recall people, places, names instantly. I wonder if this is like hive mind memory or something.
That's what I was about to say, is when they're all connected together via the Talon Warren, I wonder if they could just in like Discord ask a question and then people can chime in. Hey, who remembers the name of the First Empire guy? You remember the 7 Hounds of Darkness guy? So it's like a hive mind type storage potentially. But I mean, in this case, Onrak's remembering, but it's almost like this memory was jarred loose, because initially he said, yet there is no knowledge of such, stops mid-sentence, and a memory is jarred loose. So he remembers Decembalakis. I guess in this case, he's not connected to anybody else, so he's having to rely on his own memories, and he doesn't have photographic memory of everything that he's ever done. This is a memory shaken loose.
Right.
Onrak rumbled, and this is what your kin seek. The possibility troubles me, and this is in relation to collecting all the fragments of Kurald Emerlon. Troll studied the Talani Mass, then shrugged as he said, I did not share your distress at the prospect, not at first. And indeed, had it remained pure, perhaps I would still be standing alongside my brothers. But another power acts behind the veil in all this. I know not who or what, but I would tear aside that veil. Onrak said, Why? Troll seemed startled by the question. Then he shivered and said, Because what it has made of my people is an abomination, Onrak. Pausing here. This sounds a lot like what Karsa's trying to do. So he knows that he's being led somewhere by the seven faces in the rock, and he wants to see how they're being manipulated. And it sounds like Troll has a similar idea that his people are being manipulated by forces that he doesn't know about, and he wants to find out what that is.
Yeah. I want to make sure that this has already been covered. But isn't that why he was shorn from his clan and everything as well? Because he was asking this question of who's controlling all this, because this isn't the people that I remember. I thought that was something that was discussed.
I don't know how far we can get into this, but it sounded like he was the only one that was standing up against the tide.
Mm-hmm.
You know how it gets. There are times in history where it seems like things are not going the way they should, and people get swept up in the tide.
Mm-hmm.
If you are one of the people that tries to stand up against it, then you get run over because not enough people are willing to stand up and say, this is not right. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so it feels like a little bit of that.
I agree.
The Talani mess set out towards the gap between the two nearest statues. After a moment, Troll Sengar followed. He said, I imagine you know little of what it is like to see your kin fall into dissolution, to see the spirit of an entire people grow corrupt, to struggle endlessly to open their eyes, as yours have been opened by whatever clarity chance has gifted you. Onrak replied true, his steps thumping the sodden ground. Limping in Onrak's wake, Troll went on. Nor is it mere naivete. Our denial was willful, our studied indifference conveniently self-serving to our basest desires. We are a long-lived people who now kneel before short-term interests. Onrak muttered, If you find that unusual, then it follows that the one behind the veil has need for you only in the short term, if indeed that hidden power is manipulating the Taistedur. Troll said, An interesting thought. You may well be right. The question then is, once that short-term objective is reached, what will happen to my people? Onrak replied, Things that outlive their usefulness are discarded. Troll said, Abandoned. Yes. Onrak went on, unless, of course, they would then pose a threat to one who had so exploited them. If so, then the answer would be to annihilate them once they are no longer useful. Troll said, There is the unpleasant ring of truth to your words, Onrak. Onrak said, I am generally unpleasant, Troll Sengar. Troll said, So I am learning. You say the souls of these two hounds are imprisoned within these. Which ones again? Onrak said, We now walk between them. Troll said, What are they doing here, I wonder? Onrak replied, The stone has been shaped to encompass them, Troll Sengar. No one asks the spirit or the god when the icon is fashioned if it wishes entrapment, do they? The need to make such vessels is a mortal's need. That one can rest eyes on the thing one worships is an assertion of control at worst, or at best, the illusion that one can negotiate over one's own fate. Troll said, And you find such notions suitably pathetic, Onrak? Onrak said, I find most notions pathetic, Troll Sengar. Troll asked, Are these beasts trapped for eternity, do you think? Is this where they go when they are destroyed? Onrak shrugged and said, I have no patience with these games. You possess your own knowledge and suspicions, yet would not speak them. Instead, you seek to discover what I know, and what I sense of these snared spirits. I care nothing for the fate either way of these hounds of shadow. Indeed, I find it unfortunate that, if these two were slain in some other realm and so have ended up here, there are but 5 remaining, for that diminishes my chances of killing one myself, and I think I would enjoy killing a hound of shadow. Troll's laugh was harsh. He said, Well, I won't deny that confidence counts for a lot. Even so, Onrak of the Logros, I do not think you would walk away from a violent encounter with a hound. Onrak halted and swung towards Troll Sengar. He said, There is stone, and there is stone. Troll said, I am afraid I do not understand. In answer, Onrak unsheathed his obsidian sword. He strode up to the nearer of the two statues. The creature's forepaw was itself taller than the Talani mass. He raised his weapon two-handed, then swung a blow against the dark, unweathered stone. An ear-piercing crack ripped the air. Onrak staggered, head tilting back as fissures shot up through the enormous edifice. It seemed to shiver, then explode in a towering cloud of dust. Yelling, Troll Sengar leapt back, scrambling as the billowing dust rolled outward to engulf him. The cloud hissed around Onrak. He righted himself, then dropped into a fighting stance as a darker shape appeared through the swirling gray haze. A second concussion thundered, this time behind the Talani mass, as the other statue exploded. Darkness descended as the twin clouds blotted out the sky, closing the horizons to no more than a dozen paces on all sides. The beast that emerged before Onrak was as tall at the shoulder as Troll Sengar's full height. Its hide was colorless, and its eyes burned black. A broad, flat head, small ears. Faint through the gray gloom, something of the two suns' light, and that reflected from the moon's, reached down, to cast beneath the hound a score of shadows. The beast bared fangs the size of tusks, lips peeling back in a silent snarl that revealed blood-red gums. The hound attacked. Onrak's blade was a midnight blur, flashing to kiss the creature's thick, muscled neck, but the swing cut only dusty air. The Talani mass felt enormous jaws close about his chest. He was yanked from his feet. Bones splintered. A savage shake that ripped the sword from his hands. Then he was sailing through the grainy gloom, to be caught with a grinding snap by a second pair of jaws. The bones of his left arm shattered in a score of pieces within its taut hide of withered skin. Then it was torn entirely from his body. Another crunching shake, then he was thrown into the air once more, to crash in a splintered heap on the ground, where he rolled once, then was still. There was thunder in Onrak's skull. He thought to fall to dust, but for the first time he possessed neither the will nor, it seemed, the capacity to do so. The power was shorn from him. The vow had been broken, ripped away from his body. He was now, he realized, as those of his fallen kin, the ones that had sustained so much physical destruction that they had ceased to be one with the Talani mass.
Wow. To be savaged so badly that the vow was broken? I mean, this is another escalation. And it sounds like he maybe bit off a little more than he could chew. Really underestimated these hounds.
There is stone, and there is stone, Dane. That sounds incredibly short-sighted now. Little cocky.
Real cocky.
Yeah, I agree that he bit off more than he could chew here. There's some interesting imagery going on, namely the grabbing of him and shaking him. You see dogs do that. We have huskies, and they get the toy and they shake it around, getting images of that. These hounds look nothing like the hounds of Shadow that have been described so far. What do these dags look like to you?
When I hear flat head, small ears, the image that comes to my mind is, I think they're like the Chinese statues of dogs or tigers or lions or something. They've got smaller, rounder ears. That's the kind of thing that I picture in my head.
Okay.
Instead of looking more like a traditional dog with a longer snout and bigger ears or something like that. That's kind of what I picture.
To me, they've always looked more of like a bully breed. You see those hyperbred pit bulls where they have a very wide jaw.
Yeah.
But it's also a little bit of a hybrid with a Cane Corso type thing.
Okay.
The pointy ears and then no tail. It's like a docked tail. So very muscly, compact. I mean, they're huge, but more of that type of build. One of our listeners commented that they thought they looked a lot like Cane Corsos as well.
Okay.
I don't remember who it was at this time. It was on a prior episode, I think.
Certainly the pitch black color and coat of a Cane Corso makes a lot of sense here too.
Yeah.
Talking about the cool imagery, Onrak slashes at this thing and doesn't do any damage. It just goes through it like dust.
Did it go through it or did it dodge? To me, it sounded like it was there, and then as he was swinging, it dodged out of the way.
Flashing to kiss the creature's thick, muscled neck, but the swing cut only dusty air. Maybe it did dodge. Oh. And if that's because when I read that, I thought he slashed
it's like
at
a
it.
smoke monster.
But he just went through it like smoke, exactly. So maybe he dodged. Maybe he hit it.
Maybe it teleported. Oh, teleporting? That'd be crazy.
A lot of stuff here that could be going on, but underestimated indeed.
And then one grabbing him, throwing him in the air, and then the other one grabs it midair and then shakes him.
Like they're playing fetch with his
arm off.
They're playing catch.
Oh man, teamwork.
Ridiculous. Teamwork. Another thing that I'm a little confused about regarding Onrak, the vow was broken. What's keeping him together, or sentient, or whatever term you want to use? I kind of thought that the vow is what held them as a Talani mass, and without that, they would just kind of fall to bones and dust, and that would be the end of them.
Yeah, I'm a little unclear on this as well. Maybe it's like a localized version of that, so he's lost his connection to the wider network, but maybe he has his own power within him, because maybe Talon is all of them together making the vow, and maybe you could theoretically just have your own, and that's what's allowing him to stay alive still.
Okay.
Because it feels like he's not as powerful as he was.
Yeah, even in this realm, he talked about he doesn't have control of certain things. He can't reach out to the rest of his clan. So it's like each little thing that's happening to him here, he's getting a little bit more diminished.
Yeah. Let's come back to that.
Yeah.
Onrak lay unmoving and felt the heavy tread of one of the hounds as it padded up to stand over him. A dust and shard-flecked muzzle nudged him, pushed at the broken ribs of his chest, then lifted away. He listened to its breathing, the sound like waves riding a tide into caves, could feel its presence like a heaviness in the damp air. After a long moment, Onrak realized that the beast was no longer looming over him, nor could he hear the heavy footfalls through the wet earth, as if it and its companion had simply vanished. Then the scrape of boots close by, a pair of hands dragging him over onto his back. Troll Sengar stared down at him. He muttered, "I do not know if you can still hear me, but if it is any consolation, Onrak of the Logros, those were not hounds of shadow. Oh no, indeed. They were the real ones, the hounds of darkness, my friend. I dread to think what you have freed here."
So this goes back to something you had posited back in Chapter 6 regarding if these could be the same hounds that Perrin had released from Dragnapur. It sounds like maybe they aren't, because I thought those were definitely hounds of shadow, and Troll confirms that these are hounds of darkness. What do you think?
I think the two things are linked. They're not the actual hounds of shadow that went into the portal, but maybe the hounds of shadow had to return to darkness for these to wake up.
Okay, that's interesting. That could be.
I think initially my suspicion was, like on my first read through, you had those two go into that portal, so it makes sense that they would be the two that are here. And also Troll and Onrak assumed they were hounds of shadow, not hounds of darkness. And it's almost like people didn't even know the hounds of darkness were a thing, or maybe they just haven't been seen for so long and they think they don't exist anymore, something like that.
Yeah.
To Onrak's point, maybe by creating these statues, they were trapped here.
Yeah. Interesting.
Makes you wonder if there were multiple statues made, like how is that handled?
Right.
Sure, these people put them here to worship them, but what if another civilization also similarly created 7? Like, is it shared between them? Like, how does that work?
This is one of those layers that's so confusing to me about these hounds, is they're in Kurald Emerlin, which is the Warren of Shadow. So if they're hounds of darkness, why would hounds of darkness be trapped in a statue in this realm instead of in Kurald Galain or something like that? Like, if they had to return home, then I would think that the hounds of darkness would be there and not in Kurald Emerlin, which is the Warren of Shadow. You know,
if the people that built these were an offshoot of the Taistadur that had remained here after the Warren was ripped apart, perhaps for them, the idea that they knew darkness was a thing, and maybe they understood that there were also hounds of darkness. And so I'm not sure if they knew that this realm was a wandering piece of shadow, but maybe if they did, they thought, okay, well, the hounds of shadow can't be controlled and the shadow realm's ripped apart, so maybe we need to worship something else. Maybe they decided to worship darkness because they understand the concept of dark, light, and shadow because they are of that. I don't know.
I mean, like I said, this is one of those things that confused me, and the more I sat and thought about it, at this point in the book, I don't really have any answers yet. So I remember kind of getting into a spiral about trying to figure it out, but you just don't have enough information.
True. How much of it has he actually figured out at this point as he's writing it too?
Right.
Maybe he had a plan for the whole thing the whole time, but you're right. At this point, it is very confusing. It is really cool.
Yeah. Really cool.
Maybe you don't need to reconcile all this just to know that these things are more dangerous than the Hounds of Shadow.
Yeah.
Troll just said, hey, man, if it's any consolation, those were Hounds of Darkness. And he's admitting that they are more powerful than the Hounds of Shadow.
Yeah.
It's kind of like an escalation again.
Yeah.
Onrak was fairly certain he could do some damage to a Hound of Shadow. He got decimated by that thing.
Yeah. It wasn't even close. You didn't even land a single blow.
Yeah.
You know? So that's out of your league, buddy.
Onrak managed to reply, his words a soft rasp as he said, so much for gratitude. Troll Sengar dragged the shattered Talani mass to a low wall at the city's edge, where he propped the warrior into a sitting position. Stepping back, he said, I wish I knew what else I could do for you. Onrak said if my kin were present, they would complete the necessary rites. They would sever my head from my body, and find for it a suitable place so that I might look upon it for eternity. They would dismember the headless corpse and scatter the limbs. They would take my weapon to return it to my place of birth. Troll said, oh. Onrak went on, of course, you cannot do such things. Thus I am forced into continuation, despite my present condition. With that, Onrak slowly clambered upright, broken bones grinding and crunching, splinters falling away. I cringe at the thought of the noise all this is making right now.
Yeah.
It's almost like nails on a chalkboard to me.
Yeah.
Just, ooh, it's got to be terrible.
What's funny is, I think earlier when you're first introduced to Onrak and they talk about he still like grinds and creaks and everything anyway.
Yeah.
And now he's all broken up and bones and chunks of shards and everything. He's full of water. He's just a walking bag of mess.
Yeah, I guess the sound that I thought it made was kind of like when a bow is being pulled back and it's creaking.
Yeah.
Yeah, now that it's all broken, it's got to be terrible.
Sounds like a gravel in a bag or something. Just like...
Troll grunted. You could have done that before I dragged you. Studying the torn muscles of his left shoulder, Onrak said, I regret most the loss of an arm. My sword is most effective when in the grip of two hands. He staggered over to where the weapon lay in the mud. Part of his chest collapsed when he leaned down to retrieve it. Straightening, Onrak faced Troll and continued, I am no longer able to sense the presence of gates. I guess that's one example of something he's lost in relation to the severance of Talon.
Yeah, seems like a pretty important sense for him as well, being able to discern these kind of magical influences around him or something.
Mm-hmm. Just a normal dude.
Yeah, walking around blind like everybody else.
Yeah. Troll replied, They should be obvious enough. I expect near the center of the city. We are quite a pair, aren't we? Onrak said, I wonder why the hounds did not kill you. Troll said, They seemed eager to leave. He set off down the street directly opposite, Onrak following. He went on, I am not even certain they noticed me. The dust cloud was thick. Tell me, Onrak, if there were other Talani mass here, then they would have done all those things to you, despite the fact that you remain functional? Onrak said, Like you, Troll Sengar, I am now shorn. From the ritual. From my own kind. My existence is now without meaning. The final task left to me is to seek out the other hunters, to do what must be done. One of the things that I was thinking about as you brought up the fact that Onrak is shorn from the ritual and what that means, how is he able to continue? I was thinking, why do we need to go through all of this ritualistic dismemberment? And why would they be willing to do that? I guess Onrak just answered that question. If you're severed from your connection with your people and there is nobody else for you out there, it would be a really solitary, lonely existence. So maybe that's why they're okay with being put in a tree branch and watching the sunrise or sunset for eternity, because there's really no other point to them existing. They've existed for 300,000 years. They've seen it all. If there's no reason to do anything and you don't have a connection to anybody, there's really no hope for the future. What's the point?
I guess it's just hard you can't put yourself in his position and think about, you're still sentient in a way, I guess. The lights don't go out. So he's still going to be there and just watching a sunrise or sunset or whatever thing they decide to place him in front of if they dismember him. That sounds just as bad as at least being able to move around and be autonomous in some kind of way. But I guess for them, that's a finality that they're okay with. It sounds like, I'm just supposing.
And maybe because it's such a collective entity of them all agreeing to do this together and they've been together for so long, maybe most of them feel this way. This is the way it should be. It's culturally what they've been thinking this whole time. So I'm sure there's black sheep, just like there are with other things. Kalava comes to mind. She rejected the ritual entirely.
Right.
There are examples out there of people that disagreed with this. But I guess the rest of them, if you believe something, that this is the right way to live and this is the way it should be, and you're just accepting, I'm too damaged, this is what needs to be done right now.
I guess that's what it is he just accepts the way of their ritual. That's the way it's going to be. Okay.
The street was layered in thick, wet silt. The low buildings to either side, torn away above the ground level, were similarly coated, smoothing every edge, as if the city was in the process of melting. There was no grand architecture, and the rubble in the streets revealed itself to be little more than fired bricks. There was no sign of life anywhere. They continued on, their pace tortuously slow. The street slowly broadened, forming a vast concourse flanked by pedestals that had once held statues. Brush and uprooted trees marred the vista, all a uniform gray that gradually assumed an unearthly hue beneath the now dominant blue sun, which in turn painted a large moon the color of magenta. I've got some interesting colors coming from these celestial bodies. It definitely lends an otherworldly image to the scene.
Yeah. Well, this moon is magenta. I think we heard, was it another moon or was it one of the suns was blue?
The dominant blue sun, and it's painting the moon magenta.
Okay. So at the casting, reading, bro.
Listening as well as reading.
But yeah, no, you're right. This whole realm is very cool. I'd love to see somebody paint this, or, as you love to say, make a movie out of it or a TV show or something. I'd love to see it.
They could have fun with the general lighting of this, because when people are filming movies in the desert, for example, if it's a night scene, a lot of times they're filming during the day and they just put a filter on it and it makes it look dark. So it'd be interesting to see how they would play with the light and the tones of everything, because it should look weird. It shouldn't be like our sun's light. It should be a completely different spectrum of color. To see that visualized would be interesting. And it would immediately give you a tell of where they're located versus the quote unquote real world where the Malazans are. I think of the Matrix, where when they're in the Matrix, everything's green tinted.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
At the far end was a bridge over what had once been a river but was now filled with silt. A tangled mass of detritus had ridden up on one side of the bridge, spilling flotsam onto the walkway. Among the garbage lay a small box. Troll angled over towards it as they reached the bridge. He crouched down, reaching out to pry the clasp loose. Then, lifting the lid, he said, "It seems well sealed. That's odd. Looks like clay pots, small ones." Onrak moved up alongside Troll. He said, "They are Maranth munitions, Troll Sengar." Troll glanced up and said, "I have no knowledge of such things." Onrak said, "Weapons, explosive when the clay breaks. They are generally thrown, as far as possible. Have you heard of the Malazan Empire?" Troll replied, "No." Onrak said, "Human, from my birth realm. These munitions belong to that empire." Troll said, "Well, that is troubling indeed, for why are they here?" Onrak replied, "I do not know."
But I think we do.
Would you say this box came from the ship that was carrying Karsa when they were transported to this realm?
That's what I'm envisioning.
Okay. If so, it's amazing that they weren't damaged as they made their way through the wall onto this side, because it had to flow through that crack, or a crack, and then fall hundreds of feet, and then hit this bridge, get piled up with this detritus. They did a really good job packing that stuff.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess those crazy Maranth knew if you got to ship these things, you better get some good shipping material. Make sure that they don't bounce around in that box.
Very impressive.
Better than UPS, I'll tell you that.
Troll Sengar closed the lid and collected the box. He said, "While I would prefer a sword, these will have to do. I was not pleased at being unarmed for so long." Onrak said, "There's a structure beyond, an arch." Straightening, Troll nodded and said, "Aye, it is what we seek." They continued on. The arch stood on pedestals in the center of a cobbled square. Floodwaters had carried silt to its mouth where it had dried in strange, jagged ridges. As the two travelers came closer, they discovered that the clay was rock hard. Although the gate did not manifest itself in any discernible way, a pulsing heat rolled from the space beneath the arch. The pillars of the structure were unadorned. Onrak studied the edifice. After a moment he asked, "What can you sense of this?" Troll Sengar shook his head, then approached. He halted within arm's reach of the gate's threshold and said, "I cannot believe this is passable. The heat pouring from it is scalding." Onrak suggested, "Possibly a ward." Troll said, "Aye, and no means for us to shatter it." Onrak said, "Untrue." The Tysidur glanced back at Onrak, then looked down at the box tucked under his arm. Troll said, "I do not understand how a mundane explosive could destroy a ward." Onrak said, "Sorcery depends on patterns, Troll Sengar. Shatter the pattern and the magic fails." Troll said, "Very well, let us attempt this thing." They retreated 20 paces from the gate. Troll unlatched the box and gingerly drew forth one of the clay spheres. He fixed his gaze on the gate, then threw the munition.
I gotta say, 20 paces does not sound like much space. And to nerd out a little bit, if I may. Okay.
Please do.
So, a 6-foot-tall human male has an average stride length of approximately 2.5 feet. So that's like 60 feet. Since Troll is described earlier as taller by a forearm than Onrak, I'm going to guess that he's about 6'5", 7 feet tall, something like that. So let's say that gives him a 3.5-foot stride. So that makes his 20 strides about 70 feet. This is less than the distance between any bases in baseball, which are 90 feet. So given what we know of these Maranth munitions, and if this is indeed a cusser, I don't know, would you be comfortable throwing a grenade from that distance?
No, but let's back into your maths a little bit here, because I think I need to reframe some things for you a little bit.
Okay.
Recently, I saw an article about how the characters in Japanese games are scaled to about 5'7" or 5'8".
Okay.
The assumption that Talani Mass are 6 feet tall, I think they're shorter than that. It's been mentioned before that they're shorter, squatter, and the Teist Andi are probably closer to what you're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Humans probably have a range that's closer to what you're thinking, like humanity in this world, but I want to say the Talani Mass are probably in that 5'7", 5'8" range.
Okay.
Still, that actually makes this worse because
Yeah.
the stride length is shorter. So I think it's fair to say that it is dangerous. Troll has no idea the power of these. I'm thinking they're a cusser. So I wonder how much it weighs and if that's a factor here. Can you physically throw a cusser more than 20 paces? Because if it's a grapefruit size thing, that's bigger than a softball. I don't think I could throw it that far.
Yeah. The only thing that would change this is if it was like a cracker or a sharper. But if we're thinking these are the same box that Torvald had, he said that these were cussers. Maybe they're small in Troll's hand compared to a human's hand. I don't know. Either way.
I just had a really funny image come to mind. So let's say it's a cusser. Imagine him doing a shot put where he puts the cusser against his neck and does like a spin and then like throws it like a shot put.
Yeah.
Nobody would be crazy enough to do that with an explosive. God. But I mean, how is he going to throw it? You just softball wind up? I wonder what technique he used to throw this.
I'd like to know too, because you got to get some good distance.
Yeah. Now, I've been seeing some shorts of people that are creating slings with paracord, and then they're using a tennis ball and they're practicing using a sling.
Oh, yeah.
It would surprise me if Troll didn't know how to create a sling and why he didn't do a sling and try and get a little more distance here.
Yeah, that's a real oversight by him, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, just get a leather thong together and, fashion a sling real quick.
Maybe he's in a rush to get out of here.
Yeah, he's in a rush. We'll give him that.
The explosion triggered a coruscating conflagration from the portal. White and gold fires raged beneath the arch. Then the violence settled back to form a swirling golden wall. Onrak said, "That is the warren itself. The ward is broken. Still, I do not recognize it."
Does this seem odd to you that there's a portal to another warren inside of this fragment of Curl Demerlan? In that I mean that it's also warded, as though it's there all the time. Some of the ones we've heard about so far sound like maybe they're just kind of temporary. They open, they close, and people pass through, and that's the end of it.
I could see some permanent gates being created between realms. In those scenarios, the locals may build a gate around it. So, because it looks like there's a concourse leading up to this. There's statues. I'm thinking like Roman-looking concourse or Greek, that era where you have all these really cool columns with statues on top. If you think back to like the Dark Portal in World of Warcraft, that was like a real formalized portal between two worlds. So that's what I'm envisioning here is some type of gate existed and they built around it, or potentially they built the gate and then sorcerously formed a permanent gate between the two things initially, maybe. And then it sounds like either the locals didn't want anybody coming through it at some point, or whoever's on the other side decided to lock them out. And that's why the ward was put in place.
Okay. I'm just curious. I guess we'll get into it a little bit more as we go through, find out.
Why, do you think it's odd that there would be a permanent gate? I know we've seen temporary ones, but does it seem that far-fetched?
In some situations, I would say it would not be, but maybe we can come back to this towards the end. Maybe that I can explain why I think it's odd.
Okay. I look forward to hearing your thoughts.
Knock it off.
Closing the munitions box once more, Troll muttered, "Nor I." Then his head snapped up and he said, "Something's coming." Onrak said, "Yes." He was silent then for a long moment. He suddenly lifted his sword. He shouted, "Flee, Troll Sengar, back across the bridge. Flee!" Troll spun and began running. Onrak proceeded to back up a step at a time. He could feel the power of the ones on the other side of the gate, a power brutal and alien. The breaking of the ward had been noted, and the emotion reaching through the barrier was one of indignant outrage. So, yeah, the other side apparently did not like people from this realm, and they're outraged that this has been breached.
Yeah, don't sound pleased.
A quick look over his shoulder showed that Troll Sengar had crossed the bridge and was now nowhere in sight. 3 more steps and Onrak would himself reach the bridge, and there he would make his stand. He expected to be destroyed, but he intended to purchase time for his companion. That seems like a change from Onrak. Not that long ago, he was stepping over Troll and intending to leave him to his plight. Now Troll is his companion, and Onrak is willing to be destroyed to buy him time to run?
It's a rapid change from what we initially saw. You're right about that. It makes me wonder what came about between the two in their short time that would make him feel that way, some level of companionship that just kind of sprung out of seemingly nothing. I mean, they had some discourse, but it's not like they'd been traveling together for an extremely long period of time and built any kind of bond. Not even something so much as Torvald and Karsa, I would say. Didn't really have any interactions similar to that. So it does make me wonder, but I like it nevertheless.
Yeah, Onrak, I mean, he was calling Troll out. He's like, you're asking me all these questions, trying to find out what I know about these hounds, and you're not telling me anything. So it's not like they're buddies.
Right.
I do wonder if the change came about because Onrak is now shorn from the ritual, and so he's now not beholden to the Talani mass like he was. So maybe it's more of a personal choice, and he's like, well, I'm going to get dismembered anyway. Maybe this is as good as any reason to make a last stand.
Yeah, I could see that. Your final stand.
The gate shimmered, blindingly bright. Then 4 riders cantered through, riding white, long-limbed horses with wild manes the color of rust. Ornately armored in enamel, the warriors were a match for their mounts, pale-skinned and tall, their faces mostly hidden behind slitted visors, cheek and chin guards. Curved scimitars that appeared to have been carved from ivory were held in gauntleted fists. Long silver hair flowed from beneath the helms. I gotta say, the imagery of these knights here, I just watched Lady Hawk with the kids the other day. Not the main guy played by Rutger Hauer, but the knight that he fought at the end in the church. He was riding a white stallion. They had those slitted visors. I'm getting a lot of that imagery here. The armor was a little weird in that movie because it was like this hybrid modern look to the armor, but I'm getting a lot of that from these individuals here.
Yeah.
They had really magnificent horses in that.
Yeah.
That white horse in particular. They had a black horse for Rutger Hauer's character.
Right.
If you haven't seen the movie, look up images of that final fight between them and you'll see what I'm talking about.
I mean, if you haven't seen Lady Hawk by this point, Kamraun, you have been all about the Rutger Hauer effect for a long time.
Yeah.
Talking about leather creaking and all this kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah. It's a lot to ask someone to go back and watch a lesser known movie from the 80s. Looking up an image is a lot faster.
That's easier. But, I mean, you're talking about Rutger Hauer, Michelle Pfeiffer, Matthew Broderick. I'm sure there's somebody else in there famous. But, I mean, to me, that's a great cast.
Oh, it had Alfred Molina in it. He was the wolf catcher guy.
Okay.
I completely forgot he was in that. He was really young in that, too.
Wow. He must have been young in that. Matthew Broderick looked like a baby, so.
Yeah. They rode directly towards Onrak, canter to gallop, gallop to charge. The battered Talani mass widened his stance, lifted his obsidian sword, and stood ready to meet them. The riders could only come at him on the narrow bridge 2 at a time, and even then it was clear that they simply intended their horses to ride Onrak down. But the Talani mass had fought in the service of the Malazan Empire, in Falar and in 7 cities, and he had faced horse warriors in many a battle. A moment before the front riders reached him, Onrak leapt forward, between the 2 mounts. Ignoring the sword that whirled in from his left, the Talani mass slashed his blade into the other warrior's midsection. 2 ivory blades struck him simultaneously, the one on his left smashing through clavicle and cutting deep into his shoulder blade. I see you cringing.
There's another one of my bugaboos, the clavicle.
Yep. Then through in a spray of bone shards. The scimitar on his right chopped down through the side of his face, shearing it off from temple to the base of the jaw. Onrak felt his own obsidian blade bite deep into the warrior's armor. The enamel shattered. Then both attackers were past him, and the remaining 2 arrived. The Talani mass dropped into a crouch and positioned his sword horizontally over his head. A pair of ivory blades hammered down on it, the impacts thundering through Onrak's battered frame. They were all past him now, emerging out onto the concourse to wheel their horses round, visored heads turned to regard the lone warrior who had somehow survived their attacks. Hoofs thudding the clay-limed cobbles, the 4 warriors reined in, weapons lowering. The one whose armor had been shattered by Onrak's obsidian sword was leaning forward, one arm pressed against his stomach. Spatters of blood speckled his horse's flank. Onrak shook himself, and pieces of shattered bone fell away to patter on the ground. He then settled his own weapon point to the ground and waited while one of the riders walked his horse forward. A gauntleted hand reached up to draw the visor upward, revealing features that were startlingly similar to Troll Sengar's, apart from the white, almost luminous skin. Eyes of cold silver fixed on the Talani mass with distaste. The rider asked, "Do you speak, lifeless one? Can you understand the language of purity?" Onrak replied, "It seems no purer than any other." The warrior scowled and said, "We do not forgive ignorance. You are a servant of death. There is but one necessity when dealing with a creature such as you, and that is annihilation. Stand ready." Raising his sword once more, Onrak said, "I serve no one. Come, then." But the wounded one held up a hand and said, "Hold, Ennius. This world is not ours, nor is this deathless savage one of the trespassers we seek. Indeed, as you yourself must sense, None of them are here. This portal has not been used in millennia. We must needs take our quest elsewhere. But first, I require healing. Oranus, attend me. The warrior gingerly dismounted, one arm still pressed against his midsection. Ennius said, allow me to destroy this thing first, Seneschal. The Seneschal said, no. We shall tolerate its existence. Perhaps it will have answers for us, to guide us further on our quest. Failing that, we can destroy it later. The one named Oranus slipped down from his horse and approached the Seneschal. Ennius edged his horse closer to the Talani mass, as if still mindful of a fight. He bared his teeth and said, there is not much left of you, lifeless one. Are those the scorings of fangs? Your chest has been in the jaws of some beast, I think. The same that stole your arm? By what sorcery do you hold on to existence? Onrak said, you are of Ticed blood. Ennius's face twisted into a sneer as he said, Ticed blood? Only among the Leozen is the Ticed blood pure. You have crossed paths with our tainted cousins, then. They are little more than vermin. You have not answered my questions. Onrak said, I know of the Ticed Andi, but I have yet to meet them. Born of darkness, they were the first. Ennius cut in, the first! Oh, indeed, and so tragically imperfect, bereft of Father Light's purifying blood. They are a most sordid creation. We tolerate the Adur, for they contain something of the Father, but the Andi, death by our hands is the only mercy they deserve. But I grow weary of your rudeness, lifeless one. I have asked you questions, and you are yet to answer a single one. Onrak replied, yes. Ennius asked, yes? What does that mean? Onrak said, I agree that I have not answered them, nor do I feel compelled to do so. My kind has much experience with arrogant creatures. Although that experience is singular, in answer to their arrogance we proclaimed eternal war until they ceased to exist. I have always believed the Talan Imas should seek out a new enemy. There is, after all, no shortage to be noted among arrogant beings. Perhaps you Ticed Leozen are numerous enough in your own realm to amuse us for a time.
Took the words right out of my mouth. Arrogant indeed.
These guys think they're better than everyone else. And to speak of the Ticed Andi thusly, blasphemy.
Yeah.
I'm not getting a good impression of these guys either, just like the Ticed Adur.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you come in hot like that, you're not setting yourself up for any great kind of feelings of warm and fuzzies, I guess.
Yeah, and somehow the haughtiness just seems fitting for the children of the light. The fact that they call their language the language of purity is just icing on the cake.
Yeah, indeed. That's exactly it.
I'm picking up the vibe of a Hamptons housewife that has never worked a day in her life and is yelling at somebody at the smoothie shack after hot Pilates or whatever, that entitlement and nastiness.
Yeah, that's all you're getting is entitlement immediately. Like you said, the language of the language of purity, all of that stuff.
The warrior stared as if shocked, speechless. Behind him, one of his companions laughed and said, there's little value in conversing with lesser creatures, Ennius. They will seek to confound you with falsehoods, to lead you away from the righteous path. Oh, they're zealots, too. This is even better.
Yeah.
Ennius replied, I see now the poison of which you have long warned me, Malachar. Malachar strode up to Onrak as he said, there will be more to come, young brother, on the trail we must follow. You call yourself a Talan Imas, yes? Onrak replied, I am Onrak, of the Logros Talan Imas. Malachar asked, are there others of your kind in this ruined realm, Onrak? Onrak said, if I did not answer your brother's questions, why imagine I would answer yours? Malachar's face darkened. He said, play such games with young Ennius, but not with me. Onrak said, I am done with you, Leozen. He sheathed his sword and swung away. Malachar said, you are done with us? Seneschal Jarud, if Oranus has completed his ministrations, I humbly request your attention. The lifeless one seeks to flee. Striding forward, Jarud rumbled, I hear you, Malachar. Hold, lifeless one. We have not yet released you. You will tell us what we wish to know, or you will be destroyed here and now. Onrak faced the Leozen once more. He said, if that was a threat, the pathos of your ignorance proves an amusing distraction, but I weary of it, and of you. 4 ivory scimitars lifted threateningly. Onrak drew his sword once more, and hesitated, his gaze drawn to something beyond them. Sensing a presence at their backs, the warriors turned. Troll Sengar stood 15 paces away, the box of munitions at his feet. There was something odd about his smile. Troll said, this seems an uneven fight. Friend Onrak, do you require assistance? Well, you need not answer, for it has arrived, and for that I am sorry. Dust swirled upward around Troll. A moment later, 4 Talan Imas stood on the muddy cobbles. 3 held weapons ready. The 4th figure stood a pace behind and to Troll's right. This one was massively boned, its arms disproportionately long. The fur riding its shoulders was black, fading to silver as it rose up to surround the Bonecaster's head in a mangled hood. Is that a gorilla? It is! Long arms and a silverback pelt. A gorilla Talani mask.
Interesting. I did not pick that up.
Yeah, normally I think of bears, and Kalava transforms into a panther, so I guess it could be any animal. Olar Ethiel's a dragon. A gorilla one. That's cool,
Nothing's
man.
off the table here.
Oh, man.
What a beast.
If it takes 100 men to fight a gorilla, I wonder how many men it takes to kill a Talani mask gorilla. Can't be done.
I don't even think it's 100. I think that's a falsehood. Yeah.
Where do you stand on the 100 men versus a gorilla debate?
I think the gorilla mops the floor with everybody.
I agree with you. 100%.
Not even a question.
And the people that say we're going to tire it out, no. The speed and ferocity.
No way. There's so much testosterone in that thing.
Yeah.
He can clobber like 5 of you with one swing. There's no way. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah. A gorilla with a purpose is unstoppable. I used to not like them so much, but man, they're really growing on me as animals.
I like them. I've always liked a gorilla.
Really?
They're up there. Maybe I need to change my answer. Instead of divers of capybara, maybe I need to be divers of silverback gorillas.
But there can only be one silverback.
So then you're a soul-taken silverback?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I do think that there is a component to the soul taken individually being a stronger version. And the divers individually, they're lesser than a single soul taken. Now, all of their powers combined, they're going to beat a soul taken in many cases, I think. I guess it depends on the matchup. What do you think of that theory?
I think the theory is sound, but I feel like it's unlikely you're going to fight the individual piece of divers. You're going to be fighting all of them.
Yeah.
You're going to be fighting 100 gorillas. You're not going to be fighting one of the divers' gorillas.
Mm-hmm.
Grillin is not sending out one rat. You know, you're getting all of them.
Onrak allowed his sword's point to rest on the muddy cobbles once more. With his link, born of the ritual, now severed, he could only communicate with these Talani masks by speaking out loud. He said, I, Onrak, greet you, Bonecaster, and recognize you as from the Logros, as I once was. You are Monarch Okem, one of many chosen to hunt the renegades, who, as did those of my own hunt, followed their trail into this realm. Alas, I alone of my hunt survived the flood. His gaze shifted to the 3 warriors. The clan leader, his torso and limbs tightly wrapped in the outer skin of a Denrabi and a denticulated gray flint sword in his hands, was Ibra Golan. The remaining 2, both armed with bone-hafted, double-bladed axes of Chalcedony, were of Ibra's clan, but otherwise unknown to Onrak. He continued, I greet you as well, Ibra Golan, and submit to your command. I need a pause. The outer skin of a Denrabi, I thought they were chitinous. They have skin?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just kind of like bony, like there is kind of a flesh underneath, but there's stony type layers pocked into the skin of it to make it harder and seem chitinous, maybe? I don't know.
Now I'm thinking it's like an eel, but it has pincers. Some weird hybrid.
I mean,
I literally was thinking it looked like a centipede in the water almost. Yeah. Maybe not all the legs, but the segmented body with the chitinous armored shells. Interesting. Maybe it has a soft underbelly.
Maybe it is. Maybe he's got the underbelly of the Denrabi. It's more supple down there. The other thing, the description of this, the denticulated flint sword.
I love that word.
The Chalcedony double-bladed axes. If I'm correct, I believe that's kind of like a blue type of stone. I don't know. These guys coming in, rising out of dust, the way that they look, silverback, Denrabi skin, cool weapons, like, ooh, awesome.
And now these haughty Thais Leosin are outnumbered.
Yeah.
Let's see how tough they are now.
Yeah, I want to see them get their comeuppance too.
Bonecaster Monarch Okem strode forward with a heavy, shambling gait. With characteristic abruptness, he said, You have failed the ritual, Onrak, and so must be destroyed. Onrak replied, That privilege will be contested. These horse warriors are Thais Leosin, and would view me as their prisoner, to do with as they please. Ibra Golan gestured to his 2 warriors to join him, and the 3 walked towards the Leosin. Jarud spoke, We release our prisoner, Talani Mas. He is yours. Our quarrel with you is at an end, and so we shall leave. Oh, how quickly the tables have turned.
Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love this.
Kind of a respectful tone.
the tables have turned a little bit, and they're like, no, he's not our prisoner anymore.
Yeah.
You can go.
No, we're going to leave. It's cool. No speak of lesser beings. No, how dare you speak to me with your foul tongue. None of that, just...
The bully has been cowed.
The Talani mass halted, and Onrak could sense their disappointment. The Leosin commander regarded Troll for a moment, then Jarud said, Edur, would you travel with us? We have need of a servant. A simple bow will answer the honor of our invitation. Troll Sengar shook his head and said, well, that is a first for me. Alas, I will accompany the Talani mass. But I recognize the inconvenience this will cause you, and so I suggest that you alternate in the role as servant to the others. I am a proponent of lessons in humility, Tice Leosin, and I sense that among you there is some need.
My God. It just keeps coming back. The arrogance is absolutely astounding.
Dane, would you like to be my servant? Just nod if you agree. I don't need to hear the sound of your voice anymore. Just your consent with a nod is enough. He shook his head.
I'm shaking my head. For me, this is another example of great writing. Short encounter, but fills me with all kinds of emotions. And I feel like if they were written poorly, you would have no regard for this whatsoever. You just kind of skim through it. But the fact that it's getting us, I love it.
Yeah, these guys are just too much. He must have had so much fun writing them. Imagine just putting yourself in the mind space of the most entitled beings you can think of and just haughty, I'm better than everybody else. Everything's beneath me. I am the child of the Father of Light.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
You're right about that. This has got to be fun for him. If you're not having fun, what are you doing out there? It's also funny to me how characters who are bad stand out more a lot of times. Like I'm thinking of Joffrey from Game of Thrones. He's acted out so well that the actor in real life gets hate. These guys, they really stand out.
Yeah. Billy had the name for that, the Glenn Close effect,
Oh,
after her role
right.
in Fatal Attraction. And so that's two references today. We had the Hauer effect and the Glenn Close effect brought back. Yeah. That's crazy.
Way back. Gardens of the Moon-isms, those weren't they?
I think both of those came from Excruciating Details.
Oh,
We were talking about the boys. We might have referenced them in this as well.
Mm.
The Seneschal Jorud smiled coldly and said, I will remember you, Edur. He whirled and said, on your horses, brothers. We now leave this realm.
So this, for me, I don't know if anybody else reading through this was struggling, but as they referred to him as Seneschal and Jarud and interchanging them a little bit, I had to look this up. Apparently, Seneschal is like a title, kind of like a high priest or high something. And so when I was reading through this the first time, I was like, is there more people? It was throwing me a little bit. So I don't know if there was anybody else like me, but I wanted to point that out a little bit.
Good call out. Monarch Okem spoke. You may find that more difficult than you imagine, Jarud said. We have never before been troubled by such endeavors. Are there hidden barriers in this place? Monarch said, this warren is a shattered fragment of Kurald Emerlon. I believe your kind have remained isolated for far too long. You know nothing of the other realms, nothing of the wounded gates, nothing of the ascendants and their wars. Seneschal Jarud snapped, we serve but one ascendant, the son of Father Light. Our lord is Osric. Monarch Okem cocked his head and asked, and when last has Osric walked among you? All four Leos invisibly flinched. That cut them to the core. That is a painful call out right there.
Yeah. Where's Daddy?
That's great, dude. Not even paying his child support.
Daddy didn't love him.
In his effectless tone, Monarch Okem continued, your lord, Osric, the son of Father Light, numbers among the contestants in the other realms. He has not returned to you, Leosin, because he is unable to do so. Indeed, he is unable to do much of anything at the moment. Jarud took a step forward. He asked, what afflicts our lord? Monarch Okem shrugged and said, a common enough fate. He is lost. Jarud said, lost? Monarch said, I suggest we work together to weave a ritual, and so fashion a gate. For this, we shall need Talon, your own warren, Leosin, and the blood of this Tice Edur. Onrak, we shall undertake your destruction once we have returned to our own realm. Onrak replied, that would seem expedient. Troll's eyes had widened. He stared at the bonecaster and asked, did you say my blood? Monarch replied, not all of it, Edur, if all goes as planned.
I love it. These phrases that are like conditional. Trust me, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I think,
what if it doesn't go to plan?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'd be willing to go along with that. I guess Troll doesn't really have a choice here. He wants to get out of this realm, and they're saying the only way to do it is we need your blood.
Yeah.
It sounds a little suspect, though.
It does. I guess this is kind of going back to what we were talking about before, but Onrak's ambivalence to his destruction, it always feels odd. But, I suppose when we remember that the Talan have been around for thousands and thousands of years and just maybe that end is welcome. Although when he says they would sever my head from my body and find a suitable place that he can look out on eternity, it still doesn't sound welcome.
Would it be so bad to be in Yosemite and have the most beautiful sunset or sunrise
if you
every
could
day
choose
for
it.
eternity? I guess maybe you get tired of it or something. I don't know.
Do you think these guys are going to go, where do you want to be? Or you think they're just going to dismember him and set him right there? He could be on this road, and that's it.
They do their best, I think, given the option.
Okay.
Hopefully you're not getting dismembered in some place where it's really rough.
Yeah.
Like Houston, Texas, for example. Just
Yeah. Maybe Houston, maybe West Texas, and you're just looking at tumbleweeds and that.
But yeah, I think it's a cultural thing.
Yeah.
I think they've all been raised in this, and it's the norm that this is what was going to happen, unless you're a black sheep and are willing to stick out, and the nail that sticks out gets hammered.
Yeah. I mean, that's what makes the most sense.
I wonder what's going on with Osric. What do they mean that he is stuck?
Yeah, it's a good question, and we're obviously not going to get the answer now, but another one of those things we have to just kind of keep a mental note of the next time we come around to hear what he's up to. Have to remember back to this.
And thus the chapter ends.
Mm.
For standout moments.
Onrak's, I'm using air quotes, battle with the Hounds of Darkness was pretty crazy. There's a lot of arrogance to think that he would just kill one. It was going to be no big thing.
Yeah, those Hounds of Darkness are crazy. They seem larger than the Hounds of Shadow, and I suspect much stronger.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, love to see them coming into the story.
I agree. Again, on the topic of those hounds, for some reason I really struggled with it. Hounds of Shadow, Hounds of Darkness, that Decembolacus may have been a diver's, but again, like I said before, maybe I just put too much thought into them, trying to understand them too early instead of just kind of enjoy the ride and just keep reading, because obviously we don't have the answers now, but it's still really good.
It is really confusing. They spoke of the Hounds of Shadow being reflections of something else, and then the statue's not casting any shadows. Yeah. They're all linked in some way, but those relationships feel a little bit murky. But it's just such a cool concept, and those entities are so cool. That escalation of power again, and the idea that there are more hounds. You just want more. Give me more.
Yeah, you're right. I enjoyed Onrak's telling of how the bone casters thought that creating an icon or statue would capture or confine or chain that spirit, god, deity, whatever we want to call it. I think that's an interesting theme, and I think it's something that we keep seeing throughout the whole series. The Azath houses capture or contain powerful entities like Raist in the Finnest house, or the roots of Tremorlore, Dragnapur capturing powerful souls. I find that very interesting.
Yeah, and also to add to that, it reminds me of the two-way street between the god and their worshippers, like we talked about earlier. Interesting concepts.
Yeah. I also liked when Troll and Onrak were on the portal of the Taisleosan. Onrak said that he was prepared to make his final stand for Troll. And we talked about this a little bit before. That is a pretty touching thing. So maybe for somebody who's a little bit more laconic, I guess, they haven't known each other for a very long time. But like some other pairings of characters that we've seen, they seem to share a bond that grew pretty quickly. And it's just one of those things that we've talked about before. This is like one of my favorite couples. I like it.
It seems like a pretty quick transition with his attitude towards Troll, even in this section where he was kind of snapping at him about asking all these questions when you're not giving me anything back, to being willing to die moments later.
Right.
And I do wonder if that's related to his shortening of the ritual.
It could be. It's interesting, though. Yeah. Our first encounter with the Taisleosan, and already they're on my list of dislikables. I do find it interesting, though, this sibling rivalry with the Tai-Standi, but not so much with the Adur, because they were going on about pure blood and hatred for the Andi, but they tolerate the Adur. I know they said the Adur have something of Father Light in them, but that logic doesn't really track then, if they're talking about purity, and the Tai-Stadur are already muddied because of, Mother Dark and Father Light.
I mean, they're good enough to be servants. That's about it.
Yeah.
Coming at it from their perspective.
True.
Yeah. They're the only ones worthy of being their servants.
I guess so, yeah.
Because they have that little bit of Father Light in.
Yeah.
I actually enjoyed this introduction to them. They're so over the top. I can't help but laugh. I enjoy reading them so much. I don't hate them like I do Silgar or Bidithal or Malik Rel or Pulik Alar,
Mhm.
they don't come across the same way. They're so comical in their haughtiness that it's too much. It's almost like a joke to me, you know? I don't know if anybody else had that impression.
I can certainly vibe with that because you're right. Some of those other characters that you listed off, it's like immediate hatred. But
Yeah.
not like this. Like these guys are just like, I agree. They're comical. That you can dislike them in a way that's funny, but
It's like a
I
character
still enjoy reading them.
of
Yeah,
some
exactly.
supremacist, you know?
Yeah,
The racial supremacy vibes coming off these guys is extreme.
it is.
All right, great job today, Dane.
Thank you, Kamraun. Good job to yourself.
Appreciate it. You got any final thoughts before we drop off here?
I'm curious to see what's going to happen between this little group now. We've got Troll, we've got the Thijs Leosin, we've got the Talana Mass. They're all going to band together. It's going to be something, I think.
Yeah. Let's see what comes of it. Is there betrayal
Mhm.
afoot, or is it going
Right.
to work out the way everybody intends? We'll see.
Hopefully Troll doesn't lose all of his blood.
Yeah, definitely. All right, thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week.